What is a serial killer and how do investigators track them? Serial killers are some of the most notorious criminals in history. They often target multiple victims, leaving a trail of destruction and terror in their wake. But how do investigators track them down? By understanding what makes a serial killer, law enforcement can use various techniques to locate and apprehend them. This includes analyzing crime scene evidence, interviewing witnesses, and utilizing psychological profiling to identify potential suspects. With modern technology such as DNA analysis, investigators have even more tools at their disposal to help bring serial killers to justice. Here are some famous and notorious cases. Stay until the end and you will hear about the hardest case to solve and the most notorious one. The Cleveland Torso Murderer, the Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run, was a notorious serial killer in Ohio in the 1930s. He was shrouded in mystery and kept much of his activities hidden from public view. He is known to have killed at least 12 people, mostly drifters and sex workers, and his crimes were characterized by dismemberment and decapitation. The Zodiac Killer. During the late 1960s to early 1970s, an unknown serial murderer committed multiple killings in the San Francisco Bay Area. Although he claimed 5 deadly cases officially, many investigators believe there were more. Even after so many years, the Zodiac Killer's identity remains a mystery. The Boston Strangler. This unidentified serial killer operated in the Boston, Massachusetts area during the early 1960s. He is believed to have killed 13 women, most of whom were elderly. The Boston Strangler's identity remains unknown. Here are more stories or cases that some share similarities to the Jack the Ripper case. The Thames Torso Murders, also known as the Embankment Murders. This series of murders occurred in London, England between 1873 and 1889. The victims were dismembered and their remains were found in the River Thames. The killer was never caught. The Servant Girl Annihilator. This unidentified serial killer operated in Austin, Texas during the late 19th century. He is believed to have killed at least 8 people, mostly female servants, and his crimes were characterized by brutal attacks and mutilations. The Whitechapel Murderer. This unidentified serial killer operated in the Whitechapel district of London, England in 1888, the same year as the Jack the Ripper murders. The killer is believed to have killed at least 6 women, some of whom were killed in a similar manner to the Jack the Ripper victims. The Monster of Florence. This unidentified serial killer operated in the Florence, Italy area between 1968 and 1985. He is believed to have killed at least 14 people, mostly couples who were parked in isolated areas. The Monster of Florence has never been caught. The Axeman of New Orleans. This unidentified serial killer operated in New Orleans, Louisiana during the early 20th century. He is believed to have killed at least 6 people, mostly Italian immigrants, and his crimes were characterized by brutal attacks with an axe. The Cleveland Strangler. Anthony Sowell operated in Cleveland, Ohio during the early 2000s. He was convicted of killing 11 women, most of whom were sex workers, and his crimes were characterized by rape and strangulation. The Freeway Phantom. This unidentified serial killer operated in the Washington, D.C. area during the early 1970s. He is believed to have killed at least 6 young women and girls, and his crimes were characterized by sexual assault. The Freeway Phantom was unidentified serial killer until 1977 until he was arrested. The Black Dahlia. This murder case occurred in Los Angeles, California in 1947. The victim, Elizabeth Short, was found dead and mutilated, with her body cut in half. The case remains unsolved. And now, one of the hardest cases to solve and one of the worst cases in the U.S. The Green River Killer. This serial killer, also known as Gary Ridgway, operated in Washington state during the 1980s and 1990s. He was convicted of killing at least 49 women, most of whom were sex workers, and his crimes were characterized by strangulation and disposal of bodies in remote locations. The Green River Killer was a notorious serial killer who operated in the Seattle and Tacoma areas of Washington state in the United States during the 1980s and early 1990s. The killer, whose real name is Gary Leon Ridgway, was responsible for the deaths of at least 49 women, most of whom were sex workers and runaways. Ridgway was known for picking up his victims along Pacific Highway South, a stretch of road notorious for prostitution. He would strangle his victims and then dump their bodies in remote locations, often near the Green River, hence his nickname. Despite a massive police investigation, the Green River Killer managed to evade capture for decades. However, in 2001, advancements in DNA technology led to Ridgway's arrest and eventual conviction. In a plea deal, Ridgway confessed to 49 murders, though it is suspected that he may have killed even more women. Ridgway is currently serving a sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. The case is considered one of the most notorious and complex serial killer investigations in American history. The ongoing challenges of investigating notorious and complex serial killers in America. Investigating notorious and complex serial killers in America is a daunting task that requires immense dedication, skill, and resources. It is not something most police forces are equipped to handle. It requires an understanding of the criminal mind and a deep knowledge of the criminal justice system. Serial killers often have intricate patterns that can be difficult to detect or anticipate. Furthermore, the victims may not always be found or identified, making it even more challenging to investigate these cases. As such, it is essential for law enforcement agencies to have access to the latest investigative methods and technologies in order to effectively investigate these notorious and complex serial killers in America. Please subscribe, and it helps me to create additional videos. Thank you. Oh, also ring the bell.